My name doesn't matter much anymore, but for the sake of telling this right, I'll tell you the people in town used to call me Buck. 68 years old this past March. Widowed for going on 5 years now since my wife Helene passed from the cancer that ate through her in 11 brutal months. We had one daughter. Her name was Marigold, but she went by Goldie her whole life, even on her business cards. I was buttoning the cuff of my good blue shirt when my phone started buzzing on the dresser. It was a quiet Sunday in October, the kind that makes an old man remember every Sunday that came before it. Goldie had invited me over for supper. She said she was making her mother's pot roast, the same recipe Helene used to make when the house still felt warm and alive. Goldie had not cooked that meal once since her mother died. Not once. So when she called me earlier that week, sounding soft for the first time in years, I let myself believe something dangerous. I believed maybe my daughter was finally finding her way back to me. Then the phone rang again. Sterling McGrath, my lawyer, a man who never called on Sundays unless something had gone terribly wrong. The moment I answered, I heard it in his voice. "Buck, where are you right now?" "In my bedroom, getting ready for supper." A pause. "Don't go." At first I laughed because it sounded ridiculous, but Sterling didn't laugh with me. He told me my daughter had filed paperwork with probate court asking for involuntary guardianship over me. She claimed I was mentally incompetent, that I was confused, forgetful, unable to manage my money or my life. I sat down on the edge of the bed so hard my knee cracked, loud enough to echo through the room. For a second, I honestly thought he had the wrong file, the wrong daughter. But then Sterling explained everything. Goldie and her husband Trent wanted control of my accounts, my house, my land, my trust funds. Everything Helene and I spent our entire lives building. And suddenly all those little conversations from the last 6 months started replaying in my head differently. Goldie asking if I ever forgot to take my medication. Goldie repeating questions I had already answered. Goldie gently bringing up retirement communities. Trent casually mentioning memory care facilities for the future. At the time, I thought they cared about me. Now I realized they were building a case. Sterling warned me not to go to dinner. He believed they planned to ambush me somehow. Maybe with paperwork. Maybe with a doctor ready to declare me unstable. Either way, the dinner wasn't about pot roast. It was about control. After we hung up, I sat alone in my kitchen for hours writing down every strange interaction I could remember. And the more I wrote, the clearer the pattern became. Every conversation had been a test. Every visit had been surveillance. My own daughter had spent 6 months quietly preparing to take my freedom away. While I sat there grateful, she was finally talking to me again. That realization hurt worse than losing money ever could. Because money can be rebuilt. But once your child looks at you like a problem instead of a father, something inside you breaks permanently. That night I called Goldie and lied. Told her I had food poisoning and couldn't make supper. She went quiet for half a second, too long. Then she said, "Feel better, Daddy." Cold, flat, no disappointment in her voice at all. And when she hung up without saying she loved me back, I finally understood something I had been refusing to see. The woman waiting at that dinner table wasn't trying to save me. She was waiting for me to become helpless enough to take everything. And deep down I knew she wasn't finished trying. If you've ever trusted someone simply because they shared your blood, subscribe. Because sometimes the people closest to you are the ones quietly measuring your coffin. The next morning I was sitting inside Sterling's office before the sun had fully come up. He locked the door behind me himself. That's when I knew this had become war. Sterling laid out everything they needed to do before Goldie made her next move. Forensic psychiatrist from Duke would evaluate me before their hired doctor ever got the chance. A private investigator named Renee Doucet had already started digging into Trent's finances, and what she found explained everything. Trent's development company was drowning, loans overdue, properties close to foreclosure, investors pulling out. They weren't trying to secure my future. They were trying to survive theirs. "Buck," Sterling told me quietly, "they don't want your money someday, they need it now." That sentence stayed lodged in my chest like a splinter, because desperation makes people dangerous. Sterling's strategy was simple. We let them believe their plan was working. I kept going to Sunday dinners. I smiled. I played along, and every second of it felt like swallowing nails. The following Sunday, I walked into Goldie's house, wearing the same blue shirt as before. She hugged me at the door and kissed my cheek like a loving daughter. But now I noticed things I had missed before. The security camera pointed toward the dining room. Trent watching me too carefully. The way Goldie repeated questions she already knew the answers to. It wasn't family dinner anymore. It was observation. Halfway through the meal, Goldie casually brought up the farmhouse again. Said she worried about me being alone. Said maybe it was time to think about safer options. This time I decided to test something. I looked down at my plate, waited a beat too long, then asked softly, "Now what were we talking about again?" The reaction was instant. A quick glance between her and Trent. Tiny, fast, but real. Like two gamblers realizing the cards were finally falling their way. That was the moment my heart truly broke. Not when Sterling called. Not when I saw the court paperwork. No, it broke watching my own daughter look relieved at the idea that I might be losing my mind. After dinner, Wesley slipped past me in the hallway and pressed something into my hand without speaking. Just a folded piece of paper. I waited until I was alone in the bathroom before opening it. "Grandpa, they are trying to put you somewhere. I have recordings. Please don't let them know I told you. I love you." I sat there on the closed toilet lid, staring at those words while my hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the note. That boy, that 15-year-old child, had more courage in him than the adults in that entire house combined. I flushed the note before leaving the bathroom. Then I walked back out smiling like nothing had happened. Because by then I understood the game, and survival depended on them believing I was still blind. A few days later, I underwent the full psychiatric evaluation Sterling arranged. 4 straight hours of memory tests, reasoning exercises, financial questions, problem solving. At the end of it, the doctor smiled at me and said something I'll never forget. "Mr. Buckley, your cognitive health is exceptional for your age." Exceptional. Meanwhile, Renee kept building the case. Trent's affair, hidden debts, secret payments, and worst of all, the Dr. Goldie planned to use against me. Turns out the man had already been accused before in other guardianship schemes involving elderly people with money. One afternoon, Renee came to my house carrying a thick folder and eyes that looked angrier than before. She placed photographs on my kitchen table. Trent meeting the psychiatrist in a parking lot. An envelope changing hands. Cash. My future being sold like a business transaction. I stared at those pictures for a long time. Not because I was shocked anymore, but because some part of me was still mourning the daughter who had allowed this man into her life. Then Renee asked quietly, "Has Wesley contacted you again?" I told her no. That Goldie monitored everything. She nodded slowly. Then she said, "Leave that to me." 3 weeks later, my phone rang while I was making coffee. It was Renee. I got the recordings. I nearly dropped the mug. Wesley had hidden 11 audio files inside an old game cartridge in his room. He'd smuggled them out through a church coat drive with the help of another teenager. That boy planned an entire operation under his parents' roof while pretending everything was normal. And when Renee played the recordings for us later that night, I felt something inside me finally die. Goldie's voice filled the room. Cold, calculated. She said I stopped being her father the day I kept Helene on life support 1 extra week, as if loving my dying wife too long had become a crime. Then came the recording about Wesley, about sending him away to boarding school once they secured control over my estate. Like he was an obstacle to remove, not a child. I had to step outside after that. I stood alone on my porch in the freezing dark trying to breathe. Because grief hits differently when the person you're mourning is still alive. If you're still listening right now, subscribe. Because sometimes surviving betrayal means accepting that the people who save your life aren't always the people who raised you. Sometimes they're the ones still young enough to know right from wrong. The court hearing happened 8 days before Christmas. Goldie walked in expecting an easy victory. A confused old man, a sympathetic daughter, a quick signature from the judge. Instead, she walked into a courtroom already waiting for her lies. Sterling came prepared with medical evaluations, witness statements, financial records, and evidence tying Trent directly to the corrupt psychiatrist they hired against me. Then came the recordings. The courtroom fell silent as Goldie's own voice echoed through the speakers. Every lie, every plan, every cruel little conversation she thought nobody would ever hear. I didn't look at her while they played. I couldn't. Because no matter what she had done, part of me still remembered holding her when she was little. When the final recording ended, the judge removed her glasses slowly and looked directly at my daughter. Then she dismissed the guardianship petition completely. She referred the psychiatrist for criminal investigation. She ordered an inquiry into Trent's fraud. And, most importantly, she granted temporary custody of Wesley to me, effective immediately. Outside the courtroom, Wesley stood waiting in the hallway. When I walked toward him, he tried to stay strong. But the second I wrapped my arms around him, I felt him shaking. "Did we win?" he whispered. I held him tighter. "Yes, son, we won. He's lived with me ever since. The farmhouse feels alive again now. Messier, too. There are muddy shoes by the door. Engine parts in the garage, laughter in the kitchen. Real life, the kind I thought I had lost forever. And maybe that's the strangest part of all this. I lost my daughter, but somehow through all that betrayal, I got my family back too. If this story reminded you that quiet courage still exists in this world, subscribe. Because sometimes the people who save us arrive with nothing more than honesty, loyalty, and the courage to do the right thing when nobody else will.